All right, welcome back. And let's welcome our guest, Dr. 𝐸𝐴𝐻 Brebner, Secretary of Health, and of course, Deputy Chief Secretary, and she can speak to a number of issues given the portfolio that she holds. Good morning and welcome, Doc.
Good morning, Brother B. Good being here this morning.
Well, you know, we celebrate as Belgarden people now. And I say,
hey, listen!
I'm saying that because I have two brothers, you may not know, that are from Zion Hill.
Okay.
That's Dolan and Stephen.
Okay.
So I used to be, I told them, I used to be there when the pan was
up by
on
the
hill.
up on the hill.
And listen, those days, the pan had a different, I don't know, there's something distinct about the Belgarden East Side pan. I don't know what's happening down the road.
We are
but
special.
Right, so just boast a little bit about the victory.
Well, I mean, it is somebody told me yesterday that they like how I rub in the tea. But I am just very, very happy that we are back at a point where East Side is at the top again. Because there was a period, I played with East Side when I was about 14, 15 years old.
So you would have been there on the hill.
Listen, yes. I played, I was up there in the back in the smoke where you're hanging over the drain.
Right.
I know about up Zion Hill.
Right.
So I am just happy that we are at the point now where we are back up. I am just happy that we have the players, the arrangers, and we could bring good music. And I want to congratulate them because last Saturday, a lot of people don't know that almost everything that could have gone wrong went wrong last Saturday. And they were still able to forget everything, get on stage and execute. And that to me is testament to resilience and, you know, very good music and having a good arranger, having practice before and so forth. I am just happy.
Great. There's an investment in 𝐸𝐻 Ramsey, and I just want to plug all the other young arrangers, the Richards and of course Toby. But why the investment and what do you believe in this year? Why do Belgarden East Side believe in 𝐸𝐻 Ramsey so much?
Well, I think it is not just 𝐸𝐻. We have a crop of young arrangers who I think have a combination of two things, and I think this is where the difference is. I think before, we had arrangers that just had the ear for music. They were just naturally talented. They could do it, they could pick it up, they could put it on paper and put it on pan. What we have now is the combination of the theory, the combination of actually learning music, understanding arrangement, that kind of stuff from the theoretical standpoint, and then adding the natural ability to it. And when those two things come together, this is what you're seeing. This is what you're seeing with the 𝐸𝐻 and the OJ. This is what you are seeing. So it's really a plug that we still, you know, as much as we have the natural talent and so forth, there is still something that you get, that additional push that you get when you do the formal education part of it, and that is what is making the difference now.
Excellent, and congratulations again. All right, let's go into it. All right, so we started pleasantly. Let's go to the unpleasant thing. But somebody called me and said, "You want to hear Dr. 𝐸𝐻 and website writer cuss out at the Saturday?" So I came here and I said, I spoke to Mr. Morris and I said, I hear the two ladies that are cuss out. But let's hear your version as to what led to why you were not happy with that present. Well, not that you don't want the water, but the whole idea of the formalities that should have been followed by Mr. Gonzalez and, of course, the representatives.
So let me start by saying that there was no cuss out.
All right.
There was no cuss out. So I came to the event and I spoke on behalf of the Chief Secretary because I was only there because they invited the Chief Sec and he couldn't be there. So as Deputy Chief Secretary, he asked me. And I guess coincidentally, being in my district, it also makes sense that I was there. If you listen to my entire presentation that morning, I spoke for about 10 minutes. So I'm encouraging everybody to go and find it. And what I did was really congratulate everyone for being at that point and thanking everyone for being at that point, and particularly highlighting the fact that collaboration is what got us to that point. Because a lot of people don't recognize that the land that they are on is actually Tobago House of Assembly land. And when we met with the minister before and so forth to work through the process for the project, getting that land vested into WASA happened the fastest I have seen public servants work. We had the meeting, and within a week, 2 weeks, they had the actual document in their hand because WASA needed that to go to IDB. Now, I said all of this, but I also highlighted the fact that when I got up that morning, I didn't have water in my tap, which was a fact. I highlighted the fact that, and I'm sure you know, because he has been here a million times, Naya Roland Murray, the president of the Goldsboro Farmers Association, that right across the river, after we spent $13 million on a water, I don't know if it's a WASA thing, a water thing, the farmers in Goldsboro still did not have water. I simply highlighted that. And I said to them, looking at the collaborative model that we use for this is what we should use going forward. And I highlighted the fact that in the Tobago House of Assembly Act, whenever there are services that are provided that are not under our purview, the aim is for us to work together to make sure that the people who we serve get served. Brother Bida is why I say go and listen to the speech. That is what me say.
Right.
And I am sitting there, nice and proper, and just waiting, and then I realize, but wait, these people vex. But I don't think and I have to play back in my mind. Even the following morning, I got up the next morning and I'm thinking, nah, Faith, something wrong, something else happened. And I went back and I played back the footage of my whole speech again. And I said, but wait, something else is happening here. And then somebody whispered to me, you know, when they say a guilty conscience needs no accuser.
All right. Okay. Wisdom there. All right. So, and so that is done and moving on. We're looking forward to the water that everybody needs and so on. But let's go now to your area, health. All right. I must commend what I've experienced within recent days. I went to the Blue Room to do my, but I have a issue that I'm going to raise with you. I don't know if it can be, anyhow. So they did, excellent doctor. The guy gave me a lecture about my own health, and I was really appreciative. However, in terms of getting the blood testing and the thing you do, the ultrasound and so on, I had to go to varying areas to access it.
Right.
I end up in Roxborough. Now I'm asking, is there a plan to have all the services provided at one place? For example, I don't know about the Blue Room. Blue Room is there, fine. But I have to go to the hospital, the Scarborough General, and then to Buku, and then to... So speak to us about possibility of having all these services available in one place. Is there any plans for that?
So, okay, so most people don't recognize, you said, so my responsibility is health. It's health, wellness, and social protection. So we include social protection and what happens with public health. But what you've identified is the fact that we have significant challenges with our diagnostic testing capacity. It is nearly impossible to have all of the testing tools that we need in all of the spaces, simply because they cost so much money. And when, for example, you have a division that has a 20-something million DP allocation, when one item costs 10 million, you know, we have to be very, very conscious of how we are rolling out some of these things. So what we are working on right now is to look at the management model of some of these facilities, because what you've identified is the fact that we actually have several facilities that were not necessarily under the management of the Tobago Regional Health Authority. Remember when a previous secretary, I will not call her name, created the pink room and blue room and all of these multicolored rooms. The management of those were done outside of the Tobago Regional Health Authority. And therefore, what we are trying to do now is to realign them so that it fits smoother into the whole system. So we are actually thinking through what will be the best model, because we have the primary care services, which is the health centers. We have the hospital services, which is the secondary care. But we also have these entities that are kind of in the middle, that are kind of floating. And because they were not designed well enough in the beginning, we now have to kind of retrofit them further so that you don't have to do the up and down, up and down. So that's part of the work that we are doing at the Tobago Regional Health Authority right now. It's part of the restructuring. We did a strategic plan, and it's not final just yet. And the next step from the strategic plan, one of the first activities, is to do a structure for the Tobago Regional Health Authority that takes into consideration all of these things, so that we are able to better serve clients like you.
There has been an issue. I understand, and I'm careful because my good friend that passed away, and one of the challenges was that he was sent back home because there were not enough beds in the hospital. We have a 100-bed hospital, Dr. Faith. That will not suffice. Is there any plan to increase the number of beds in the hospitals? So if both Roxborough and Scarborough.
So if you go back to when we moved to Signal Hill, I happened to be around because I was working at the division at the time. We went from a hospital that was way more than 100 beds to a 100-bed hospital. So we decanted. We had to send home people who were lying down in the hospital up the fort. So we have been going down, which, you know, I don't know what was the wisdom in that, but it is what it is. We also have the 20-something or so beds that are in Roxborough overall. So
how many beds?
It's about 24, I think. When you look at all of the two for peds and it adds up. It adds up a bit in Roxborough. So we have that. What we need to do, though, is as a society, work on not building hospitals with more beds. Because when we build hospitals with more beds, what we are doing is saying that we are making provisions for people to get sick and to get sick.
All right. Because
what we should be doing is working towards people not going into our hospitals because they are getting healthy. And that's why one of the projects we are working on. So remember, this is the 44th year of the Tobago House of Assembly. We've decided as an executive council that we will work on 44 priority projects. One of the 44 priority projects for the Division of Health, Wellness and Social Protection is a cardiac care kind of project. And that cardiac care project, which we will do the official announcement when we have things signed on paper, because it's with an external agency and we're working through the procurement and that kind of stuff with it. One of the things that will do is to help us treat with people who have cardiac problems, but it also includes a significant preventative kind of mechanism. So the things that cause you to have problems when you have heart issues, blood pressure, that kind of stuff. If we are able to prevent those things, then we are able to prevent some of the other diseases that we have, the diabetes and all of those other things. And ultimately, we should see a reduction in numbers of people who are heading to the hospital. Right. So my aim is not to add more hospital beds. Okay. My aim is to get to the point where we are doing enough at the primary level, which includes the prevention, which includes getting people to just go to your health centers when you need the kind of services that are available there and so forth, so that we don't have to add more beds. But again, we are doing a full deep dive of all of the services that are happening at the Tobago Regional Health Authority to figure out what's the best model that we can use going forward.
Very good. All right. Right. So, but people will get sick, yeah. And you can't calculate how many will get at a time. So there would be need for
actually there are calculations that you could use, and really? there are models that you could use to calculate in essence how many beds we actually need, and this is basic public health methodologies that we can use. What I can say though is that part of our challenge is what happens. One of the biggest issues we have is what happens, for example, when you get to A&E. Accident and emergency. And we actually have Dr. Baker, who is now the CEO of the TRHE, working very closely to work through again what happens at A&E, how we could get people out of A&E quickly, how we could get them from A&E either into the wards or decanted back to their health center, or whatever is the best thing, so that we don't have a lot of people waiting there, sitting there, complaining about that too much. I don't know if you recognize, you are actually seeing less complaints about these things. And by the way, that is how that is the model that I am using to determine some level of success. You may not notice it, but I am calculating the number of calls that I get that are complaints. And when you see the calls going from 20 to 18, then to 15, we know that, okay, something is happening. There are less people calling to complain, which means the system is working a little better, and that's what we're working towards.
All right, let me go to, and I'm going to mix a little bit on sweet. So let's deal with something sweet that is working fine. And that's the cataract services that is provided in Roxborough. Dr. Faith, I'm concerned though as to the amount of people who have cataract in Tobago.
Yeah.
Listen, the numbers are frightening. In fact, they're oversubscribed. And that service is provided. How did that happen? And it's very efficient. There are those who are not following the instructions and can get in serious trouble with their eyes. But anyway, the service is offered through the Canadian. Just give us.
So this is, let me tell you how that happened. We came out of COVID. And because we were in COVID, cataract surgery is seen as a non-critical. So during COVID, if you had cataracts, that is one thing we were not dealing with because that is non-critical. Yeah. So coming out of COVID, I recognize that, and I firmly believe, to be honest, that somebody was up in the eye clinic, up in the hospital, and giving people my number. Because random people used to be calling me because there were just so many people who needed to have cataract surgeries done, and we could not get all of the little parts that are needed. We could not get them quickly enough to have the services provided. Again, going back to issues with foreign exchange and that kind of stuff back then. So we got together, worked with Dr. 𝐑𝐢𝐿𝐞 and others, and we were like, okay, let's think of a project that we could do to help alleviate this issue. Cataract surgery is a very simple surgery. I actually have a video of it, and from beginning to end, it could take less than 10 minutes.
Yes.
Very, very quick, very, very easy. And because of that, we were able to find a supplier who could come in, bring in some equipment that we needed because we needed some better equipment, and actually bring in a specialist who would come in every couple months and do the surgery. So you realize that what happens is we're not having surgeries right through. And as a matter of fact, that project has come to an end after it was extended twice, because after we did it the first time. Is there any
intent to extend it again? Because there's a demand.
There is a demand. But again, it goes back to cost, right? So we did it the first time, realized that after we did all of these other people showed up. And I think what happened there? People were living with the cataracts, not being affected too much. You did the surgery, realize I can now see, and now you're telling your neighbor, your granny, your uncle, and all of those people who were living with this blurry vision all the time, realizing, but wait, so we could really do something about this. And then they started coming forward, because many of these names were not on the original list that we had. And that is one of the reasons we opened it up for the public to register themselves. So we did it the first time, we did it the second time, and November or December was really the last time Dr. Ponce came, because he flies in for a week or 2 week period to knock them out. And when I tell you knock them out, Dr. Ponce is literally there with the team that comes, and he's there and he's there and he's there, and within the day they have done 30.
During the night too, because it went up to 12.
Up to what o'clock in the night?
Exactly.
Because there were numbers, the contractor had numbers, and you had to meet your numbers. And unfortunately though, the last time that they came, the first couple of days we had challenges because the system, and remember this is why, for example, Roxborough Hospital is not a full hospital yet, because we had to test the system. We recognized when they came back, the first day or two we couldn't do any surgeries because the AC in the operating room knocked out. And it is stuff like that that we've been trying to test to see the system, to see how it's working, to make sure we're not in the middle of a surgery. Imagine if we were in the middle of a surgery and the AC knocked out in the operating room, how devastating that could be. We could talk about infections and all sorts of things. And so we were able to do that, and that is one of the reasons they had to go so late, because when we had planned to do 20 or so per day for the period, first 2 days, first 3 days, we couldn't do anything, so he had to make up to get those done. But he did an amazing job. The entire team is amazing. The entire team at Roxborough, because it was the ones who came in and the ones from on the ground who worked together to do it done.
You mentioned cost for to bring these Canadian eye specialists. What are the opticians?
So it's a group of them. Dr. Ponce is the lead surgeon, who's an opthal something. I don't want to use the incorrect term. So he's the main surgeon, but they brought nurses and other people to be part of the team. And he came from outside. He lives in Canada. He's actually a Mexican that lives in Canada. But other people from the team came from other places, because that's what, that's what they do.
What did that cost the teacher?
Oh, so
Taxpayers, rather.
it's a pretty penny, eh? It's a couple millions well.
Wow.
Couple millions well. But what we did was...
Is there any figure per se?
I don't know the figure off the top of my head.
Couple millions well.
Couple millions well.
Right.
But what we did, what we started with, we actually started with a contract that said that each surgery is going to cost maybe like 8,000 or 9,000 or something like that. And every time we redo the contract, we reduce it. So we did it for, I think, $8,000 or $9,000 per surgery the first time, and then we brought it down, said, okay, now that we're doing it again, we have all of the equipment, everything good, you all know what you're doing that now, so bring it down. And then the third time, we renegotiated again to bring down the cost. So the cost that we paid in Tobago is significantly cheaper than if you had gone out, because when I see people calling me, asking me to help them pay for it, it's $10,000 and $15,000 is being charged on the open market out there. But because we were able to negotiate with them for the numbers, we were able to bring down the cost significantly.
And this comes from the coffers of the THA,
yes,
not
this
central government.
Everything that I am responsible for in Tobago comes from the coffers of the Tobago House of Assembly. We don't get additional. So when they talk about health getting $600 or $700 million, whatever is the figure at the end of the fiscal, everything you see us doing is coming from that. We may get some jerseys from central government. If there's a specific project where they are working on and they include Tobago, we may get a banner or two. You know, that kind of stuff is what comes out of it. But everything else, when we have, for example, the ambulances, that's coming from our coffers. Right. All of that comes from what we get from the thing.
All right, so I'll say I'm mixing the bitter with the sweet, right? So we celebrate that. However, the issue of forensic investigation. There are those who, so the pathologists have to come to ensure that and give you what they did. So you go through that. That is separate. However, when there are issues where forensic pathology, should I call it that, has to be done, there's an issue where the bodies are decaying at the space that they've been held in. Maybe no ice, I don't know. But there's that complaint, Doc. What is the response to that? Has there been any response in getting proper equipment or the right equipment to hold these bodies that has to do forensic investigation?
So the equipment that we have is actually pretty good equipment in terms of the freezers and the storage and that kind of stuff. Part of the problem is that we really do have, so if it's a forensic pathology that is needed, meaning somebody died in a way that we need to investigate it in that particular way, we have to actually wait for them to send somebody from the Forensic Science Center up to Tobago, or we have to send the body from Tobago down to the Forensic Science Center. That is a challenge all by itself, because if you realize all of the murders that are happening in Trinidad, they have their hands full down there. So it's kind of hard to then send up somebody, or when we send down, it gets added to the long line down there, and our Tobago families are sitting down there waiting and that kind of thing. So that's a challenge. But the equipment itself is actually pretty good equipment. What we have again been doing is looking at all of the systems to make sure that everything is in place. So the TRHA actually just spent the last year or two doing a lot of significant hires. I don't know if you realize every week you see an ad come out from the TRHA that is asking for this long list of people. And it's because we recognize that we needed people who were proficient in certain areas to be responsible.
Pathology is one of them?
It is one of them.
Okay.
It is one of them. And we are also, I'm not going to say who the person is now, but we are also right now negotiating with a pathologist, a Tobagonian, to have that person come back on to provide partial service as well, in addition to who is there full time at the hospital.
Dr. Faith, there's also, so in terms of folks worried when family members cannot be buried, and you know, somebody said, "Brother, I went to see my brother, and his body."
But was this recent?
Yeah.
Was this a recent thing? So if this is recent, I maybe off air we would talk about exactly who that person is, because these are the cases that we also need to identify. I like to identify specific circumstances so that we can address those circumstances.
Yeah. All right. Family protection is under your purview as well. Dr. Faith, the Minister of Health went through the hospital in Trinidad, and we know he said he went looking for baby to kiss for New Year's and thing. and there were few, and he complained about our population is decreasing.
Yeah.
Is it the same in Tobago? During Christmas, you went to kiss baby too?
During Christmas, so I think last year was the first time we did not have a Christmas baby and we did not have a New Year baby. This year, those last couple of weeks, a month ago, month and a half ago was the first year we did not have a Christmas baby and a New Year's baby since I have been sitting as Secretary for Health, Wellness and Social Protection.
I mean, obviously, there's a concern about our population growth. Speak to us quickly as we get ready.
So when we look at the data, we are actually seeing every year we actually are having less babies, and that is happening in Tobago as well. I've been looking at the data for Tobago, and it's been significantly decreasing. It's one of we're not quite sure why, but it's one of the reasons as an administration, though, we have actually been actively thinking about what do we need to do, and one of the 44 projects again that are priority for us is actually a baby box project, and that is a box, and we were actually sitting with the different folks trying to figure out what we're going to put in the box. It really is something that we will give to every single person who delivers in Tobago. This really nice, actually it's kind of like what you see us giving on Christmas and New Year's, but it will be more expansive than that. This box that says to mommy, daddy, family, you are bringing this bundle of joy. We know you may not have everything, but we don't want you to worry. Here are some onesies. Here are some diapers. Here are some, whatever is needed. And we actually had a meeting 2 weeks ago, and last week we were filming up what that list would look like. And then we are also, so we're encouraging people, using that as a method to encourage people. So you have one more thing to give you the push to come in and make the babies.
You remember some years ago on radio, when I was on radio, and I'm speaking to you, and you had a vision about, we're going, guys. About having a next to the workplace. I think you even spoke to it on the platform, where you have a daycare so that mothers don't have to worry about their paternity leave running out, they have their babies next door. Is that part of the vision still?
It is part of the vision still, and we are actually now also working on having, for example, a breastfeeding room, at least at my division, so that we could think. It's all part of that project going forward. I can't wait to as a matter of fact, I think today is when we are doing one of the consultations, because we have earmarked the room for the breastfeeding room, and we now have to work out exactly what we need to put in it and so forth. And the daycare thing, that's something that it hasn't been forgotten.
All right, good. You see, I remember I spoke about it some time ago. You see, she remember? I don't tell lie when I sit down here. All right, we want to thank you very much, and pleasure having you, and of course we'll chat again. All the best.
Pleasure being here.
Okay. All right, at this point in time we go for the break. When we come back, we speak with Martin George, attorney at law. See you then.
Do you suffer from diabetes or